Good evening, folks. How are we doing? Lovely to see you. Thank you ever so much for coming along and coming along as a part of our Autumn-Winter 2022 season. This is a pre-concert talk with the lovely Bill Laurance. A little bit of housekeeping. We're currently in the room and we're also online as well. People watching us on YouTube and Facebook at the moment, as well as those watching for the live stream concert later on today. If you are currently watching on YouTube and Facebook, click the link in the video description and you can purchase your live stream pass to watch the concert, and it should be fantastic. If you're looking at this setup, beautiful piano, beautiful stage, beautiful pianist. So it should be absolutely wonderful. I have in my hand an early copy of the Spring-Summer 2023 season. This has loads of little jazz gems in it, going from January through to June. Please make sure you pick up one of these. It'd be lovely to see you at future concerts here at the centre. Very soon, our next jazz programs include Infamity Chiate, an amazing Guinean ballophonist who will be performing alongside his funk band. That will be taking place on Friday, the 18th of November. And we also have Courtney Pine joining us to premiere his new album with Zoe Rahman. That will be taking place on Friday, the 9th of December. Bill, absolute delight to have you here. WMC debut, first time on this stage. What have you been up to in recent months? What have you been up to before you come across to here?
So I guess this is quite a unique spot for me now because I've just come off a Snarky Puppy tour where the crew is at its biggest, 26, and now all of a sudden it's just me. So it's a bit of a different experience, you know. But I love the variety. I love kind of going from one thing to another and the different sort of challenges that they present and opportunities. And from the Snarky Puppy tour, I also went in the middle to Amsterdam to hear a piece that I composed for the Cello Biennale. I'd written a double cello concerto for the Cello Biennale there, so I was in Amsterdam for 4 days. Then I came home and I went and did a solo show in Stockholm, and then I was home for a week, and basically now I'm here. So it's a lot of back and forth. But
amazing, yeah. Jet setting all over the place, and then across to Wiltshire at the very end of all that. So, I mean, you talk about recently working with Snarky Puppy and kind of the massive sound that's there, and you go from there to a solo piano set. How much does that affect your playing? How much does that affect your outlook in terms of how you approach it from a musical perspective?
I mean, I'm discovering more and more that to perform solo is the ultimate kind of freedom, and as you will hear this evening, I really kind of make a point of indulging in that freedom, where, you know, you don't have to refer to any other member of the band, and you can just, if you want to turn left or go off-piste any moment, you can. And so I'm really enjoying that. But also, I mean, something we do with Snarky Puppy and with my own trio and other ensembles, something we kind of try to make a point of is trying to create something unique in every moment. And I'm certainly finding that even more so playing solo, where, you know, each song, I might have a set list, but within each song, if I feel like I want to continue in a certain vamp or carry on or just kind of actually go off piste, then I just kind of commit to it. And sometimes I find myself playing and going, where am I going? I don't actually know what's happening, you know, but it's almost like something else. It's almost like someone else is playing the piano, and it's like the piano's kind of playing itself, and that's kind of what I'm aiming for, which is, yeah, it's a lot of fun.
So this is a tour with your new album, solo piano album. I haven't written an album. There may be plenty of people out here who haven't written an album. What is the starting place as a musician? Do you come to it and go, I have a feel for what album I want to produce, or is it a collection of songs and then it starts to kind of piece itself together retrospectively?
It's a good question. I mean, I would say ultimately it starts for me with a concept, ideally, or at least a kind of a sense of the instrumentation. My previous studio album was a record called Cables, which was actually supposed to be a solo piano record. And as I started writing it and creating it, I couldn't help myself but want to put synthesizers into the equation. And before I knew it, it was this kind of really multi-textured, multi-layered, quite ethereal and dystopian record that I ended up creating about the exponential growth in technology. But that was originally supposed to be a solo piano record, and I've kind of been trying to kind of make the conscious decision to do that my entire career, and this is finally it. That was really the brief, was that I'm going to just stick to the piano. And so for this record, I recorded it at my home studio, Flint Studios, which I've only kind of just set up last year. And I put some felt between, it's on my grand piano at home, I pulled out the key bed and I put felt between the hammers and the strings. And as soon as I did that, I couldn't take my hands off the piano. I was so you get all the kind of full, rich tone of a grand piano, but with a very soft attack. And so it meant that I could play it more like a guitar in a way. And it kind of, the whole approach to the instrument and then the album, it became a lot more rhythmic without becoming too fatiguing in the way that... So that's, obviously there isn't actually any felt on this piano, so I have to kind of try to, adapt to the technique to kind of make it feel more like that. But then a new record that I've just recorded in September was with a string section, and I made the conscious decision to have no rhythm section. So it is just written for 18 string players and me at the piano with synthesizers. And so as soon as I set that parameter, I realized that all the groove, all the rhythm had to come from the strings. And so straight away, I'm kind of writing with that in mind. So it's like, I find if I decide the instrumentation, that tends to kind of inform the compositional process,
So you mentioned a little bit about your work with electronic instruments as well as the piano. And I always find it a very interesting question when you're a pianist and having to balance those two sound worlds. I mean, you do it all the time. How do you approach that? Do you tend to lead as a piano first composer and then their kind of augmentations on top, or is it a balancing act between the two?
It's been a bit of an interesting dance I've been doing between kind of committing more to technology and then actually kind of coming away from it. And currently, I'm at the point where I'm trying to kind of incorporate it in more of a subtle way. I used to, when I was touring, I did a solo tour in the States, and I had a whole rig of effects pedals and drum machines and sequences and loopers, and I did this tour in the States. It was just me, and I hired a car. And the first thing I did was went to Home Depot and got a plank of wood and put all these pedals and stuff on the plank of wood, and then I just lift it in and out of the car and then just plonk it on the piano of every venue. So everything was kind of plugged in. And that was a much sort of more epic soundscape that I was creating. And I've found that since then, I've sort of gravitated more towards just trying to kind of get to the core of the instrument, of the piano, and actually simplifying what it is I've been adding. I mean, there's still elements, there's effects on the piano we put on, and I have a module as well where I'm running sequences. So it's still there, but I find the more I'm playing the piano, the more I kind of want to try and create that soundscape with the instrument by itself. So it's almost like the electronic instinct is still there. It's just I'm trying to realize it on the acoustic piano.
And that must be a really interesting process when you're going from hall to hall. And obviously, you've never played this piano before, you interact with this piano today. Talk about that process, because actually then what you have, presumably then you've got an album that's live in every place, and there's a new sound world to discover.
Absolutely. I mean, I feel every night, it's like getting to know a new person, I used to think of sound checks in the context of a trio or a larger band. It's just about kind of getting the right sound in the room. But when it's just me on my own, I feel like I want to just play for much longer than I normally do when it's just solo, because I just really want to understand, the personality of this instrument. Because every instrument is different and responds in different ways, and there are certain songs or certain dynamics that like speak to me more. So it's just trying to kind of develop that relationship. But that's again what keeps it interesting. Because also the action can be different too. Like this piano is a little heavier than the one I played in Manchester, and so that kind of can affect things. But it's just like trying to get to know a person.
So your new album, there's a lot of original compositions. There's also covers in there as well. I personally am a huge Bill Evans fan. I see Piece on the menu, House of the Rising Sun as well. Talk about that process, not only of reworking covers, but how you decide on covers and how they complement original tunes. Do they interplay at all with any of the compositional ideas you're working with?
Yeah, I think they do. I mean, I think they also represent an opportunity to kind of explore a different world, you know, both compositionally and yeah, I mean certainly harmonically. It's almost like when it's kind of more a jazz standard or a pop song, because the melody is already, you know, kind of there, or maybe the song is better known. It almost gives more room, provides more room to be free within it. I've found certainly that on Piece. Where it's just this kind of repeating chord progression in the left hand that never really changes. I've found that the more I play that in the solo context, the more I'm instinctively want to kind of push it away from that, you know, and it's like exploring how far I can stretch it, you know. And also, I think it kind of offers a bit of a kind of tonic to, you know, the kind of writing that I write. I tend to write, you know, I have a kind of a sound that I tend to gravitate towards, and I think playing covers, you know, gives a nice kind of contrast to that as well. So it's nice to have the two.
Brilliant. You've been very busy today. Not only have you been preparing for today's concert, Bill came in early to work with Wiltshire Jazz Academy, which is our youth jazz group, of which we're going to see some members out in the foyer for a free stage immediately after this talk.
They're
so you'll
killing.
Get to enjoy
They're
that.
great.
They're great. Fantastic. Talk a little bit about that experience and from your perspective, how important that music education side is for you.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, it's huge. You know, it's absolutely where it all began for me, and you know, for lots of my friends and colleagues, like certainly in Snarky Puppy, we all feel like we've had amazing teachers over the years, and that's really where the inspiration began. So I think we all feel like almost a duty to hand it back in any way that we can. I have to say, it's been a long time since I've actually worked with students this young. Normally it's kind of like college age or older, and so kind of working with younger students again is like it's really refreshing, because you can see how much you know, enthusiasm there is to kind of to learn and to go for it. And so I find it a two-way thing. You know, obviously I feel like my job is to be inspiring in those moments, but like I get as much back as I give, because it's absolutely a two-way thing. And with the guys, some of the students got up and we all played together, and you know, it's a really we've all just had amazing teachers over the years, and I think we all feel very strongly that it is a responsibility to kind of to hand that back to the next generation.
Brilliant, and we feel that responsibility here at WMC to do both the concerts and the education stuff as well. Are there any questions from around the room at all? Does anyone have any questions? I can repeat them for those on the live stream watching from home. Yes, from the front row. Hello, Scott.
Hi, Bill.
How are you?
I'm really interested in your approach to developing a melody, because your melodies are very satisfying to the listener. They take us on a journey, and then they sound very complete. So I'm wondering if you can say anything about how you develop from an initial melodic idea to a finished piece.
So for those at home, the question was about how you take about developing a melody, and it mentioned how satisfying many of your melodies are and what that process is like.
I mean, I would say, thank you for the question. I would say, you know, melody, I do feel like melody should be everywhere, whether it's in the melody itself, or it could be within the chord progression, or it could be in the bass line. Or I often talk when I'm working with the trio, the drum beat, there's a melody in the drum beat, you know. So I'm always kind of searching for melody, always looking for melody. I think I'm very, certainly when it comes to, well, both writing melodies and also improvising in the context of like free improvisation, I'm really thinking about phrasing. And I'm constantly just trying to have a conversation with myself, whether I'm writing or whether I'm improvising. And so there's always, I think, a very clear sense of contour and a very clear use of grammar. So there are very, you know, there are just very clear phrases that are relatable, and there's always this kind of, I guess, sort of instinct to connect them all and to have a sense of overall contour where the thing is kind of growing in a sort of organic way. But as I was saying before, I think in the context of solo piano, it's something I can really indulge in. Is just, you know, sometimes I'm trying actually to kind of go the opposite way of my instinct in this context. When I'm playing solo, it's like, well, because suddenly I have the freedom to do that, you know, and like where I might have last night gone, rah, you know, tonight I might go, rah, rah, you know? And it's like, as long as there is a kind of a clear sense of direction and a clear use of, we were talking about this in the class this morning, just really a use of assonance and dissonance. And really, that's the only kind of rule, is that, as you know, any amount of dissonance needs to be followed by some sense of resolution. And I feel like as long as that's kind of happening somewhere along the line, it gets me through. But I think it's really just following how I feel in the moment, and but certainly in terms of writing a melody, you know, and I'm finding more and more it's less is more, actually. You know, the simpler. I'm trying to write more simple stuff. Me and Michael League are about to release a duo album, which is me at the piano and him playing oud and acoustic fretless bass. And writing for that was really interesting because we had to kind of just filter everything down. We couldn't hide behind a drum beat or a synthesizer or a singer or anything, or, you know, horns, or it was just, so the compositional content had to be so lean and kind of economical. And so every melody just had to have so much kind of point to it, you know. And writing in that context was a really interesting exercise in just making your any compositional choice being absolutely necessary, you know. And just kind of, you know, yeah, that's coming out, I think, late January. So look out for that.
I really hope you accompany the melodies tonight with that kind of vocals. I think that'll add a certain level to the performance. You can sing along at home if you're watching on a live stream. We probably have time for one more question, I would have thought, if there's any around the room. Yes, over in the corner.
Hi.
So the question about your influences, certainly, and you can hear some romantic classical elements within the music. I mean, you're a classically trained pianist first and foremost, aren't you? How much does that affect your work?
Most definitely. I mean, my first teacher was a ragtime player, a guy called Mel Robinson, who sadly we lost a couple of years ago. But he was a remarkable guy and was the perfect first piano teacher to have, because he was just there was so much joy in his playing, and whenever he sat at the piano, everyone was just like, woohoo, just like, he just had that effect on the room, and so that's all I really wanted to do, and that's actually what got me through the grades, was just so I could play ragtime. And then I did the scales and the grades, and I played classical, and you know, I learned a lot of Chopin and Debussy and Beethoven and Mozart and Bach, and you know, early on, and I think that's always been the foundation. And then I went on to play in loads of different bands when I left university, and I made a point of exploring as many different genres as I could get my hands on it. And I've kind of ended up in sort of back in the I'm known, I guess, as a jazz musician, but I think the thing I've been searching for is just like a distinctive sound that is me, and I think that is very much a classical influence, and then more contemporary influences as well. And I think, you know, certainly in classical, there's this opportunity to really indulge in the kind of rubato instinct, and in a way that you can't quite in the same capacity in a jazz. Well, I mean, you can debate. There's the means to do both, but I like to kind of, you know, I'm searching for my voice all the time, and I feel like my voice is just the kind of combination of all these influences, and so I try and just keep it all in the same pot, you know.
Really interesting. Thank you both for two really great questions. I tend to close on quite a grandiose question. A lot of the time artists tend to roll their eyes, but I think it's one that's worth asking, which is, when audiences watching online in the room, what do you hope they take out of tonight's music?
I mean, for me, I feel like I play to escape. I play to go somewhere else. And when I'm having a good gig, I feel like I've kind of gone, you know, I'm just kind of somewhere, I've gone to another dimension. I don't know, whatever it is, but that's what I'm aiming for. And so my hope is that I can bring the audience with me in that sense. You know, it's because I often find I'll be playing and I just don't really. I'm just like, is this actually me playing? You know, and so I guess it's just really, and I feel the same about my albums. It's like I'm trying to create a world that is somewhere you can go to, you know, my hope is that it kind of takes you out of your current surroundings and puts you somewhere else, and you know, with that can come any kind of emotion or feeling, but as long as there's that sense of kind of escapism, then I feel like I'm doing my job.
Fantastic. We can't wait to hear it. Thank you so much, Bill. Thank you to everyone watching here. And if you're watching on YouTube and Facebook, click the link below. You can watch tonight's live stream. We're kicking off at 7:30 p.m. We're the Wiltshire Music Centre. We're a concert hall and community centre in Bradford-on-Avon, UK. And I can hear the swells of the Nat Evans Quartet outside. So you must go on and enjoy the evening. Thank you ever so much, Bill. And thank you to everyone watching. Good evening.
Thank you.